Salam and welcome back to our weekly dispatches program, where we discuss some of the biggest Somali-related news items of the week. My name is Abdikadir Guled. This week we discussed President Farmajo and Prime Minister Roble's reconciliation agreement, Somalia's rejection on the AAU proposal on a stabilization plan, Somali federal and Galmudug forces entering Guriel district in Galmudug, the international partners' reaction to Los Anod's eviction. To discuss these issues, we are joined by Hodan Ali and Abukar Sanei. Hodan is a nurse, a practitioner, and the co-founder and director of leadnow, a national women's movement in Somalia. And Abukar is a Ph.D. student and an instructor at Ohio Scripps School. His research areas include media and immigration and communities in the diaspora. They both join me from the United States this week. And Hodan Ali and Abukar Sanei, welcome to Somali Dispatch, and thank you for your participation today. If I may start with Hodan today, could you start us off with your reaction to the truce between the president of Somalia, Mohamed Farmajo, and Prime Minister Roble, which was announced later this week?
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Abdikadir. Thank you for having us, and hello, Abukar. So the announcement this week, I think, was really welcomed by everyone, and I think it's been long overdue, given the fact that we've been really in a conundrum between the two offices that's really not healthy for the country, given where we are, very sensitive space politically and also from a security perspective. I think it's, at the end of the day, disagreements happen. This is a political space, and the more important thing is to put the country ahead of office versus office, and to make sure that we're moving ahead. The most important part is that the agenda of holding elections moves forward, and that the security is prioritized, and ensuring that we actually get to an election and that we have a peaceful transfer of power. So having that in mind, at the end of the day, you have to give some and you have to take some. So I think it was a good compromise. And so long as it's peaceful and both offices are moving forward, I think it's good for the country.
Excellent. Before I get to Abukar, I might stay with Hodan and maybe get your reaction to the agreed upon items. Most notably would be the Ikran Tahlil's case. How do you see that in terms of what the two have agreed upon?
I think to make sure that the Ikran case really moves forward and we have independent bodies continue to investigate and get to the bottom of what happens and to get justice for Ikran really is the ultimate goal for every Somali. We stand with the family and we want to make sure that there's no obstacles to the process. Obviously, it's quite a contentious case. It's a quite publicized case. It's quite a politicized case as well, if we're being honest. But what's important is that, I've worked with Ikran. She was, an assistant to Mayor Riso Alaun Haristo. So it's personal. We know, this is not just any woman, any civil servant, but she was someone high-ranking and someone who she's a Somali woman at the end of the day, and deserves justice and at any cost. And unfortunately, I think obviously we're in a political space and things get over dramatized, but the bottom line is that she needs to get justice, and we need to make sure that all the security apparatus are working together to make sure that justice is achieved in this case, which means the head of NISA needs to cooperate, which means this is what the prime minister promised, and I do think the president also wants to make sure that this doesn't leave a long black mark on his legacy. So I think it's the interest of everyone, and particularly obviously for the family, for the mother who's chronically grieving on social media and privately, and the Somali citizens. I think beyond just the one case, this really signifies if we do get justice, if we do get to the bottom of what happened in Ikran's case, this is a new era, and there's accountability that's gonna be seen if the process is done properly in a way that's, transparent and accountable. And those in charge, if the assumptions and the accusations are true, are brought to that they face justice. And I think, given our history of trauma and brutality that hasn't been really addressed, and having people, with blood on their hands, serving in different capacities in this government and other governments, and not just this government, the Somali public needs, the Ikram case to finish with real justice, so that at least we start to begin healing and moving forward.
Thank you, Hodan. Abukar, Sanei, same topic, but if you could focus on your reaction to what the agreement between President Farmajo and Prime Minister Roble means for those anxiously waiting for a while the completion of the country's elections, be they lower house, upper house, and the presidential.
Thank you, Abdikadir. Thank you, Hodan. It's great to see you again, Hodan. Long time since we met in Somalia. Coming back to the topic, Abdikadir, this is really very important for us as Somalis, because we need to see that collaboration between President and Prime Minister as a way that we can make sure the country is going smoothly to the process of election, security, and all the governance that we need for Somalia. That's number one. Number two, this contention between Roble and Farmajo really caused, more damage to the country, because, we were in the process of election. And unfortunately, I can say that maybe fortunately, we finished the Senate election process, which was very good. But the crucial point that we are now in is really the process of the finishing the lower house elections, which are very critical for both. Both houses are very important. The Senate and also the Senate and the lower house are very important. But also, they need to be expedited a little bit. Speed is really what we need now. And also, for the health of the country, as we need to move forward, it's very important that the country is really. We have now so far for the last 8 years, we get some kind of culture of normalcy in terms of elections, in terms of the country to be democratically elected their leaders. That's really also the norm that we're expecting as Somalis to continue. So, in that case now, it gives us some hope that these two gentlemen, agreed today or this week that they need to move forward based on, regardless of what the points that they agreed with. But especially the issue of elections that are very critical. The other thing are really gentleman agreement between who will be keeping his position, who will be nominated for another position. That's really, not big issue, but the big issue is the election process.
Right.
That we need to have transfer of power coming soon in Somalia.
Right. If I may stay with you, Abukar, Somalia's foreign ministry recently released a statement rejecting the AU's sole proposed stabilization plan to the Security Council, primarily due to the lack of cooperation between Somalia and those parties. What are your thoughts on that aspect?
The issue of security is very important for Somalis. As we are now recovering from that kind of civil war and trauma for the country, this state that we are in now is really better than where we were before, even though there are still challenges in security-wise. I think, whether it's AMISOM country contributing countries, contributing countries, AMISOM-wise also, or only the international community, we have to come together in a way that we can recognize now Somalis can clearly stand by themselves. That's very important. And I really applaud the decision that is made by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, because we have now so far from 2007 that we have been having this AMISOM force in Somalia. They really sacrificed for the country. I cannot deny that. Nobody can deny that. But can we stay this forever, or do we really? Is there now? Can we say a time that for Somalia now they can securitize their country? And that's really what I see from the Minister of Foreign Affairs. And also, it's very critical that so far now many Somali forces or security forces were trained by either Turkey, by British, by the US. Those are really that the country now is time to rely those forces and also come to an end of this prolonged AMISOM stay in the country. That's really, we cannot longer have that kind of situation in Somalia for unknown period of time. So it's time now we can maybe move forward a little bit and say that, I mean, it's time that we can rely ourselves in terms of security. It's still we're a fragile situation, yes, for sure, but timetable also was there already before. So security stabilization plan was there, and there was some sort of agreement to finish the timeline of the AMISOM in Somalia, and that should also come to an end sooner or later. That's my reaction to that.
Right. Hodan, same subject. Should the AMISOM stabilization plan be changed without consultation with Somalia's federal government?
Absolutely not. Categorically, I think this is something that all Somalis should unite in ensuring that, you know, we're not always on the menu and on the table per se, right? I agree with Abukar. I mean, listen, AMISOM has sacrificed blood and treasure for Somalia. We recognize that, but this cannot be an indefinite mission. It cannot be at the expense of the Somali National Army, which I think right now, those who are in the security sector have indicated that the AMISOM mission is not a sustainable method for Somalia to secure itself. So we really need to start thinking about how we make the shift and the transition to really give the resources that Somali National Army needs, because you cannot import your security forever. So that's really, important. But what is also equally important is the need to have political stability, right? To ensure that, our institutions top down are working together, and that, particularly the top leadership understand what their job is. And their job is really to make sure that this country, from a security perspective, that we're moving forward, and that we're gaining grounds with Shabab, and we're actually building our security apparatus. Yes, some has been done, but we do have long ways to go. And this kind of political battlefield we're in is leading to folks like AMISOM to really capitalize on it, right? Because in the end, we've been on the brink of yet another, almost clashes in April, as you remember. So with that level of sort of discourse and almost on just on the footsteps of violence, yes, AMISOM and contributing partners and countries and the international community will get concerned, and these types of unilateral or bilateral agreements will be made without you being at the table. So I think it's really important that Somalia's leadership focuses on the importance of making sure that, our national interests are being represented, and not really focus so much on your opposition, your alliances, your political future. None of that really matters if the country continues to be governed externally, or if we're under Chapter 7 and all these things. So long story short, I think, the announcement for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is spot on. We don't need, the decisions to be made the way it has been. We know that AMISOM is quite reluctant to let go there. Obviously, there are a lot of incentives for AMISOM to stay, right? And we need to understand that it has to be clear. And for their sacrifices, they do get the big chunk of security money. We know what happened in Afghanistan. Somalia needs to really take notes, right? In having this sort of and again, where is the responsibility from a government perspective, right? Like, so we can make announcements, but you also need to take responsibility for the failures. I think we've made a lot of error in judgment in the last few years. We've lost a lot of ground that we should have been gaining. Mogadishu is insecure, other places are insecure. We're losing, I'm sure we're going to talk about what's happening in Guled. There's a lot of things that are happening, and we can't lose sight of the goal, which is to stabilize and secure this country.
Right, and Hodan, if I may stay with you, what are your thoughts on the mentioned Guriel incident right now in Guled, which the forces of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the coalition forces between Guled and federal forces going into that town and wreaking havoc, if you will. What are your immediate reaction to that development?
I'm really saddened to see what's happening in Guled, in particular in Guriel, right? So obviously, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah and the federal forces clashing will eventually give hand to Shabab, which is the enemy of the state and the enemy of the country. And I think it's a miscalculation and possibly a mispolitical calculation that's rooting in pushing this. Galmudug and Guriel does not need further violence. There isn't anything that cannot be resolved with peace and dialogue, right? So I think this, this violence that's already causing dozens of lives and displacing women, children, and elderly is unnecessary, to be honest. And with Shabab being on the foothills of some of these small towns and holding large ground in Galmudug, right? Yet we can't mount enough, sort of ammunition and men to actually gain back ground from Shabab, yet the government has enough resources to attack Sunnah wal Jama'ah, who is on record saying they do not want to fight or take up arms against the government. But again, politics reigns supreme in Somalia, outside of the interests of the people. Mr. Ghokor is really deadly wrong on this, and so is the federal government for taking on some such position. But at the end of the day, the losers will be the Somali people collectively. Whether this government stays or goes, the legacy of what's happening today is now seeding yet another traumatic event in the hearts of those communities, which will need yet another reconciliation process to come over. So yeah, it's another huge setback for the region. It's unfortunate, and we hope that that there is immediate ceasefire declared and that there is talk rather than taking the guns to resolve disputes which are political rather than security threat at this point, from what the analysis are giving us.
Right, Abukar, Sanei, your take on what's happening in Guriel today and tonight, and what does those developments mean, for example, for the completion of the long-awaited elections?
Yeah, because I mean, I really agree with Hodan. I mean, this really should be avoided because I mean, Galmudug is really having its own issues, which is really the main core issue is really the Al-Shabaab, who are still controlling some area of that state of that region. That's number one. Number two, I mean, the question is really, I mean, what are the priorities for the country now? I mean, is our priority to fight Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah or to pacify the country and free from Al-Shabaab? That's really the question that, I mean, or anybody else from Galmudug should ask themselves. That's number one. Number two, election, I mean, issues. This kind of conflict can maybe also affect on that because, I mean, if there's fight going on, nobody can feel secure in that area. So in that case, I mean, it may affect on the also election process, especially the lower house election process that we need to see in the country in general, and specifically in Galmudug. So I think maybe the leaders in Galmudug, whether is or on any other leader in that area of state of Galmudug, should come together and see that, I mean, and maybe recalculate what are our priorities in this I mean, war conflict zone area that we have been having before in longer run. So in that case now, I mean, I can say that I mean, it's very important that election should continue, and also there should be some sort of, I mean, talks between these two, Qorqor and the Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah group, so that, I mean, at the end of the day, Al-Sunnah, I mean, as we know, I mean, they were really the fighters against Al-Shabaab before Qorqor even came to Galmudug. So that's what we know for the fact. So this is now, I mean, Qorqor should really, I mean, use Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah as his forces, I mean, if you will, his forces to liberate Galmudug from those enemies that Hodan said already.
It's perhaps tough to, if I may play devil's advocate here, to do what you both suggested while the occupying forces of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are taking over, are occupying regions where, you know, the state was previously in charge of. But on our last point, which has to do with the last anode evictions, the ongoing Somaliland evictions of those that hail from the southern Somalia, the international community, the long-awaited response to that issue has finally broken their silence, while praising Somaliland for their developmental achievements and their democratic achievements. They also condemned finally the move or the decision to evict those Somalis from those regions. What is your take on their point of view?
Yeah, I mean the awaited, I should say, I mean, long-awaited, response or official statement by the international community is very important. I mean, as we see that what happened in Ras Anod was very unfortunate, because those people who really are, I mean, they ran away from their homes, I mean, where they lived before, and they came here as refugees or as people who were looking for opportunities in those cities, Ras Anod, in the city of Ras Anod, or that region of Sol. So in that case, I mean, I see that, I mean, it's really, as I said, unfortunate, because, I mean, business people who are really peaceful, even though you're looking for maybe some people who are really not peaceful in terms of security of the area, that's really the trigger for what we have seen in the region, in the city. But at the same time, also, Somalian officials have responsibility also. I mean, these are Somalis, I mean, regardless of whether they're Somalilanders or not. So in that case, I mean, you are responsible for, I mean, this, for the I mean, what I can say, for the sake of Somaliness. I mean, these are Somali. I mean, even though you are not now part of Somalia, as you say, but at the same time, these people are from Somalia. They came here for the security and peace that we have, and I cannot say that, I mean, all of them are really a threat to your security. If they may be some people from those people, I don't know, even I cannot even definitely say that. Right. But if your argument is valid, I mean, you cannot, I mean, lump sum and try to put everybody together in one category. That may not really be healthy. Right. And I think there should have been maybe other ways that Somaliland officials can handle this issue other than evicting and forcing these people to leave that area. Right.
Hodan, your take on the international community's communique regarding this issue?
A bit too late and not forceful enough. I work in this sector, so you know what Somaliland has done is breaks international law. It is inhumane, it is un-Islamic, and it's un-Somali. And you know, it's illegal evictions that they've done, forceful illegal evictions, and at the end of the day, I think, you know, it's really important that we take note of this action for what it is. I think Somaliland, as much as it's been making progress, it has been quite unethical in how it deals with other non-native clans. And this is not just the beginning in Ras Anod, it's been a trend. It's been, you know, imprisoning people who've come from the south. It's been taking actions of violations of people's basic rights in Somaliland because they affiliate with Somalia. So this is sort of clan apartheid that it's being set up doesn't serve well Somaliland. If it's wanting to be recognized as a nation, then you need to act like nations. Nations respect people's human rights, and you don't evict people forcefully. Having said that, these are Somali people. You know, at the end of the day, you know, it's actually disheartening that at this level, the political discourse has gone that bad that you sacrifice and you brutalize women, children, and people who invested in your city. And you know, I mean, the inhumanity is actually unbelievable. You know, people went to work and came back and their children were gone, their, you know, their wives were gone, their mothers were gone, you know, I mean, where does that happen? Right? So I think it's an indefensible act, and the fact that it continues to happen is also another grave concern. You know, the international community has a much bigger role to play. Somalis at large have a role to play to actually push back against this type of behavior. Yes, Somali government doesn't officially have any sort of probably, you know, a recourse that it can take other than condemn the act. But there are international laws that, you know, prohibit this, and actions should be taken on that level. You know, there's yet another evictions to come. And where it will stop, I'm not sure. If, you know, Somaliland is looking to exercise its powers, but you don't do it on the backs of women and children. I think it's disgraceful. I think this is a black mark on Somaliland's progress in kind of those who really cheered them on. I was one of them when they had, their fair elections open and one person, one vote, and other things that they've been, good at in terms of security and all these things. But at the end of the day, it's a collective exercise, and you can't pick and choose what you respect and what you don't as a supposed nation. They're not a nation. At the end of the day, whether they like it or not, the process hasn't gone through in terms of declaring themselves. It is self-declared region and autonomous region for that matter. But nevertheless, there is a global standard that we all, as nations and as human beings, need to sort of comply with. And hopefully we'll see much stronger condemnations and sort of actual, forget condemnations, there needs to be actions taken, because what's happening, just plain and simple, is a violation of human rights.
Appreciate your thoughts, both of you, and thank you, Hodan, Ali, and Abukar, Sanei, for being part of this week's dispatches. Until next time, take good care.
Thank you, Abdikadir.
Thank you, Abdikadir.